I know there's an awful lot of repetition on this podcast. And it's because, I guess, it's because I see what's happening as really and truly an unstoppable force of destruction that is devouring, ending our experiment in self-governance. And it worries me. I won't be around that long. I mean, come on. And if you're of a certain age, neither will you. But it's what happens after we're gone. I know, after we're gone, everything ceases to exist anyway. But that's the egocentric point of view. From a broader point of view, things do continue. And they're going to be horrible unless somehow this is stopped. A clear example is what happened, I think it was yesterday. Hundreds, not 50, not 75, not 100, not 200, not 300, not 400, over 400 former federal prosecutors signed on to a letter saying that Trump would have been charged with obstruction of justice if he were anyone other than the president, and we didn't have this ruling by the Office of Legal Counsel, the OLC, that a sitting president can't be indicted. I don't know the legalities of how that came to be, but it is what it is. The letter was signed by former Justice Department prosecutors who served under both Democrat and Republican, including U.S. or ex-U.S. attorneys and public corruption trial lawyers. It was released yesterday by an advocacy group formed 2 years ago to document the destruction of what's left of our republic. They are called, this group is called Protect Democracy. They're the ones who released the letter. You can see the letter if you want to. It's at a website, Medium, like, how do you like your egg sandwich? Medium, medium.com. Medium. The medium is the message. As of yesterday afternoon, more than 450 former prosecutors had signed the letter, with more expected. I haven't been to the website today. But when you go to medium.com, check out the number of signatories so far. In the letter, these former prosecutors say that Mueller's report, quote, describes several acts that satisfy all of the elements for an obstruction charge, end quote. Of course, those actions include just about everything this piece of shit has done since he wound up in the presidency, but include Trump's efforts to have Mueller fired and to conceal it after the fact. He actually asked McGahn, what's his first name? Robert McGahn? Huh? Donald McGahn. He actually asked McGahn to lie and then cover up the lie. Trump's efforts to have Mueller fired and to conceal it after the fact, that involved McGahn. Trump's attempts to limit the scope of the Russia investigation. Trump's tweets and public statements aimed at discouraging aides from cooperating with prosecutors. That's the tip of the iceberg. The letter also says this, and again, I hope you will go to it, medium.com, and read the whole thing. I'm not going to read the whole thing here. But in part it says, quote, in our system, every accused person is presumed innocent, and it is always the government's burden to prove its case beyond a reasonable doubt. But to look at these facts and say that a prosecutor could not probably sustain a conviction for obstruction of justice, the standards set out in Principles of Federal Prosecution, runs counter to logic and our experience. So simply what they're saying is when you take a look at the evidence that Mueller produced from all of his interviews, you look at the people he sent to prison, you look at the cases that he developed for further examination by state and federal prosecutors, when you look at the lies and deceptions and corruption that is Donald Trump, Trump is corrupt to his core. There's nothing honorable about Donald Trump. Nothing. But when you look at that, as these prosecuting attorneys did, they come to a very salient conclusion that you and I would too, I'm sure. And that is to say that Trump did not commit obstruction of justice is to say there's no such thing as logical thought or logical results as a result of an investigation. Now, as I said a minute ago, if you have 25 Democratic prosecuting attorneys who say he should have been indicted, maybe so. But when you have 100, 200, 300, 400, 500 former district attorneys, prosecuting attorneys, attorneys whose function was to examine crime, to interview witnesses, to come to conclusions based on the rules of evidence, based on logic, based on all of the information dug up in prosecuting cases, when you have a group that large with that much experience who can make an unequivocal statement that were Trump not president and protected by a ruling by the Office of Legal Counsel, there is no question that he would be guilty of obstruction of justice. But in the meantime, this pig attorney general, a new pig, there's a bunch of these rotten bastards hovering around. But when you have someone like this new attorney general, William Barr, who was chosen because he's a slime ball, because he's a sneak, because he knows how to hide the truth, obfuscate the facts. When you have someone like him now in a position of being able to determine who can and cannot give testimony to the United States Congress, that's when, and in that position, he is doing nothing except protecting Trump. He's not protecting the United States. Barr is not working to find the truth. He, like every single person in the Trump administration who has been appointed, selected, nominated, whatever, by Trump, every fucking one of them, all of them, including his rotten family, they're all liars. Every single one. Mueller himself examined nearly a dozen acts by this filthy fucker in the White House for possible obstruction of justice. And like I said the other day, like many people have said now, because Mueller is a straight shooter, former combat Marine, FBI head, all the positions that Mueller has held that required discipline and adherence to chain of command, adherence to the rules as set out by people who came long before him. Because of all that, Mueller reached the conclusion that the Office of Legal Counsel's decision that says a sitting president cannot be indicted meant a sitting president cannot be indicted. Now, again, I don't know where that decision or ruling or opinion comes from, But it's fucking horrible. Because what it means is, yes, indeed, kiddies, there is one person in the United States above the law who can do any fucking thing he wants to do, especially if he's a president like Trump, who has the head of the Senate Majority Leader, firmly in his back pocket, the Attorney General by the balls, the Supreme Court on his side. When you're in that position, you can commit murder. You can do any fucking thing you want to do, and nothing is going to happen. Oh, the House, if it's controlled by Democrats, which it is now, the House can begin impeachment proceedings. The House can even impeach. But it goes no further than that. And Trump knows this. But Mueller did the best he could do. He presented mountains of evidence that these 450 or 500 prosecuting attorneys are in complete agreement, constitute acts of obstruction of justice by this filthy fucking Donald Trump. But as soon as the report was released to Barr and the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein, who did a complete 180 in order to hold on to his job and his pension. I mean, I don't know what would be the only other reason. I don't think there is one. Why Rosenstein would turn out to be such a fucking coward, liar, deceiver, and a person willing to go along with the destruction of this country. Barr and Rosenstein, after the report was released by Mueller, stepped in and said that the evidence put together over 22 months and hundreds upon hundreds of witnesses was insufficient for an obstruction charge. Now, why they said that, I don't know, because the filthy pig in the White House couldn't be indicted anyway for obstruction. Barr has said that the Office of Legal Counsel's opinion played no role in his conclusion. This is what I mean. Barr is a fucking liar. He could not have gotten to the position of George Herbert Walker Bush's Attorney General, regardless of what he did after he got there. He couldn't have risen to that position without understanding that the Office of Legal Counsel plays a heavy-duty role in conclusions made by the Attorney General. So he lies. They all lie. And then, of course, Trump, being the bastard fuckwad that he is, immediately glommed up what Barr said and used it as his basis of saying, see, no obstruction. However, these 400 or 500 ex-prosecutors make clear that the evidence goes the other way. Of course, he committed obstruction over and over and over again because he is Donald fucking Trump. The letter says, quote, as former federal prosecutors, we recognize that prosecuting obstruction of justice cases is critical, prosecuting them. Because unchecked obstruction, which allows intentional interference with criminal investigations to go unpunished, intentional obstruction puts our whole system of justice at risk. That's what we've been talking about on this podcast for months. Trump has one goal, and the filthy bastard fuckers around him, and that is to destroy our system of justice and replace it with a fascist Christian horseshit thing that will cause this country to explode. It's coming. You know it's coming. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcast. You have your choice. You can listen to the ranting with the audio podcast or listen and watch me lose control with a video podcast subscription. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.